IMT Conversations with Rhod Tecson. An incisive and sharp discussion of today's current issues. Ang pagpadayon sa duwa ka dekada nga serbisyo publiko. IMT Conversations with Rhod Tecson.
Good afternoon. My name is Rhod Tecson and this is IMT Conversations on IMT News. Ang more power, ang power distributors ang siyudad sang Iloilo na kaangkon sang panibag-o nga ulubrahon matapos nga ginpasar nga hagna sa Kongreso ang Republic Act 11918 or ining paghatag sang extension sang ilang power distribution coverage sa 15 ka mga kabanwahanan diri sa segundo distrito and including town sa bayan sang kwarto distrito naglaps na sa isak kalayi sa tong tinalikdan nga July 30. May kang tanan sini madamo sang mga palamangkutanon. What will happen now sa Ileco 1? Ako mismo doon nagalibog man ang ulo on what will happen. Although may mga istorya na nga the more power will be collaborating with Ileco 1. And of course, ang isa ka pamangkot nga gusto man nato masabat is what if Ileco 1 will not accede sa offer of collaboration? Because as more power has said, there will be no takeover. So, anong matabo? Duwa ka postes to padta? Kaya ti, alimbawa, bikaron, diri sa opisina, possible ayhan nga masulod pa diri ang linya sang more sa subdivision. Since three-phase kita, so since permi kita gina-burnout diri, galibog man ang ulo taon, gisa live, dula ka gulpi. Ang more, laka katama ang ilang burnout, sumbot silingon, madugang kita isa ka poste, maanom ng aton ding transformer. So these are questions nga gusto naton masanagan sa sining mga tiniyon. Kaupod naton live ang legal officer sang More Power Corporation, si Attorney Alyana Babayen-on. Attorney, mayong hapon.
Mayong hapon, Mr. Tecson. Mayong hapon man sa tanan nga nagalantaw sa aton kagapamati subong nga hapon.
Thank you so much for this opportunity nga ginatag mo sa aton. Tell us, matapos nga napasar na ang RA 11918, ang pag-extend sa inyong distribution coverage into 15 towns diri sa 2nd District and portions of 4th District of Iloilo. Ano ang paano inihimuon? In a nutshell, Attorney Babayen-on.
Well, in a nutshell, RA 11918 is basically telling more that you can actually operate in this expanded area. So you mentioned ang 15 municipalities in the 2nd and 4th District of Iloilo Province and also the city of Pasig. So what's going to happen is the expansion will basically be just that, an expansion of the coverage area. So there is no cancellation of the existing franchise of the Ilecos because of course balaan taman no na may existing nga naga-service sa areas nga ni nga electric cooperatives. So there will be an overlapping of DU, distribution utility, meaning more will serve in those identified areas. At the same time, the Ilecos will continue to serve in those areas. So basically, there will be competition because hindi na kita maging monopoly. The people will now have a choice kung sino nga distribution utility ang mag-serve sa ila.
Okay. As you mentioned, may duha ka DUs. Ang duha, when you say DU, sa aton nga mga viewers, it's distribution utility. More power is the distribution utility. Ileco 1 and Ileco 2 is a distribution utility. Now, hindi ko na-gets masyado. You said there will be an overlapping. Kiti, wala sang takeover. Unlike sang pagsulod ni More sa Iloilo City, gin-take over nila ang Panay Electric Company, ang PECO. in this case, iniya wala sang agaway di. Wala sang siraduhay gate. Ang matabo diri is the beautiful and at the same time ugly course of a competition. No, we can only hope that it's the consumers that will benefit, given somehow pagligad sa panahon, more power has proved sa Iloilo nga kaya nila buhinan pagid ang rates, kaya pagid nilang buhinan ang power interruptions nga wala nahimo inisang Iloilo 1. So sa siningap na punto, you mentioned overlapping. Tama, Attorney Alyana?
Yes, correct. Overlapping of franchises. But before we continue, may I just make a comment sa naging statement mo? The takeover, quote unquote, of Iloilo City was not really a takeover of PECO. Sang nagsulod si Moore by virtue of RA 11212, it was because PECO's franchise already expired.
Yes.
So hindi siya maging comparable sa case sang expanded na franchise under the new law because may existing and subsisting franchise nga effective pa until now and for I think decades pa actually ang iban of the Ilecos. So hindi siya takeover of PECO as a company, but it was a change of distribution utility when we entered Iloilo City.
That's 11212. Now, ining 11918 naman, wala sang change. Ikaw man na nag-mention, wala sang takeover, but an overlapping of the franchise area lang.
Yes, correct. So, in those areas nga na-include sa RA 11918, they will have the benefit of having the option to choose who among the distribution utilities will serve them. So, really, it's, logical. Kung may ara ikaw ka-kompetensya, you would do more. You would make your services better. You would try to drive down your rates. Well, of course, normally, gamugin man na, no? Kay it's your obligation, it's your burden as a public utility. But lain gid ang push if you know that you might lose customers if you don't step up and do better.
Okay.
So really, it's for the benefit also of the consumers.
Now, let's imagine this situation moving forward na. Nagkakahulugan bala ini, Attorney Alyana, nga ang poste diri madoble? Ang kable madoble? And nagkakahulugan bala ining kung daw damo-damo kaya kwarta, pwede ka patakod sang Ileco, pwede ka man ka patakod sa kay Moore?
A very interesting question and very interesting times, right?
Yes.
So I'd like to answer first ang if doble, no, because that's really a common question nga I understand. I mean, as a consumer, I would want nga may ara ako two choices. Kung baga kung mag-brown out ang isa, then maybe I could use the other, right?
Yes.
Or parang switch on, switch off. But as of now, we do not know yet if ERC would allow that. Tikay sila ang regulator. But initially, gina-discuss man na siya namon if it's possible because so many people are asking. And our technical team is saying na it's not actually allowed by the Philippine Electrical Code. So we are still operating on that presumption. But in the end, it's going to be ERC nga may final say kung pwede na bala or it's not feasible at all.
Okay.
With regard naman sa question if we have to put up our own poles, and yes, the effect would be doble-doble na, no? And it's not going to be beautiful because magkaroon kita sang redundant poles. We can only imagine sa wala, for example, that's Ileco property, sa Too, more, and in between may telcos pa. So it's going to crowd the streets. And it's not going to be for the benefit of the public. Kaya magutok ang aton ng mga dalan. But if you're asking us if that's part of the plan, yes, it is. Because we have to put up our own distribution system assets. So it's composed of the poles, of the lines, nga kilometro ang kalabaon, and even putting up our own substation.
Okay. Again, very interesting because siling mo gani kung ginapamangkot ko ikaw kung amugid man ang matabo, you said yes. Pero ang isa kadako naman diring concern is definitely hindi manami, no? Okay lang attorney kung halimbawa may upod ko di nga bayis tupad ko, then ikaw man stupad ko, dubli, tatlo to malakat, no, okay lang na yan. No, kay kagwapa sa imo, definitely kagwapa man ang tupad ko, do happy. Pero kung duwa ka poste karon, gutok na gani ding sa kilid namon, nagdungan pagid ka mo, dumilibog ulota paano ni, and then dugangan pagid sa nga mga kable, do kabudlay gid. So hindi ko pagid ma-imagine. Please help me imagine how this will happen, attorney. Because for sure ako isa sa mga customer. Isang more. Kaya severe ang burnouts mo. Dugangan pa ni NGCP nga weekly, may burnout. Rason ni Eleco nga NGCP lang perme, gilingin ang ulo mo. But of course, comfort ko na, comfort sang iban probably. And many others nga dissatisfied. But the kabudlay gid imagine kung mag-put up kamo sa inyo kaugalingon nga poles, lines, and substations, since there will be no takeover, ano matabo sa postisang kiti steady man ang postisang Eleco as substation yung kable nila.
Yes, correct. So what we're going to happen to make the plan successful more or less, no, is actually examine ang area and identify those nga hindi pa siya too crowded. And in fact, it is something nga ginobra naman nato, no, part of the preparation. Naglibot na kita sa at that time hindi pa siya sure gid, but ara na siya sa bill. It was not a law yet. It was just a bill, but ginlibot na ang mga areas nga na-identify. Kitibalan taman kung diin nga mga banwa ang ma-affect. So we already have more or less an idea kung diin pa pwede maka-put up sang aton nga poste, kag of course the wires. With regard sa substation, it's mas ano siya siguro, mas hindi siya kasing rikot sa mga poles and wires because it's going to be a piece of land that we are going to use, and hindi na siya per municipality. So one substation could serve several municipalities. In our plan, in our timeline, to cover tanan ning municipality sa expanded na franchise coverage, it will take us 5 years more or less, and we will put up about 5 new substations. So it will serve all the 15 municipalities and 1 city. With regard naman sa poste nga we admit would crowd the streets, we are looking actually at the possibility nga base pa man lang pwedeng maka-joint pole agreement, you know, it's a pole, we can attach our lines also for a fee. I mean, if the Elecos would be open to that, we are exploring that possibility para hindi kita mag-redundant sa area, sa public areas, hindi tagid sobra nga ma-occupy ang streets kag mag-overcrowd with poles.
So daw, nag-question si Eleco 1 sang inyo existence, kag sang sininglayi, but under a joint pole agreement, it's Eleco that will be earning. So, paintraha kami paangta kami dira, para hindi na magdugang. Although, if Eleco will say, inyo lang na kwarta nyo ang plano nyo niya, monopoliya sang distribution utilities sa ulihi, hindi kami. Kaya may layiman niya nga naghahambal nga pwede kami kapadayon. Kung gusto nyo, patindog lang kamo daya. Kaya wala man gin-prescribe sa 11918 nga agawo nyo amon poste. Kung hindi kami, way man na prescribe nga pwede ninyo kasuhan kami nga ang poste ninyo, namon kwaon ninyo, patindog lang kamo daya poste niya. So this is also a scenario or a possible worst case scenario nga nakita ninyo nga matindugid sang panibag-ong na poste ang more.
Yes, that is correct. But sa aton nga scenario no, nga amo sinabala nga hindi man kami compelled, so hindi namon kamo pagpa-attach sa amon poles maski may fee, maski there's a potential for income. I think that's a very likely but also an emotional response. And if you are in the business of serving the public, sometimes you have to forget your personal emotional feelings and think of the consumers because well, we know it will benefit the consumers kung pwede kita ka-attach because mas madasig ang rollout, and at the same time hindi ta pag-crowd ang streets because the overcrowding of the poles could actually be a safety issue also.
Yes.
But of course, we can work around it if that's going to be their stand. We are ready and we have anticipated that reaction. Although, of course, we are still hoping na tani magkaroon sa cooperation. Anyway, this is for the consumers, for the Ilonggos.
So da maabot ni attorney ang tiyempo nga diri sa amon sa kilid sa opisina kag sa amon community paviyang area namon mambal ka sa akon nga boss may suga ka wala ka na suga hindi kaya patakod sa more mo lawlaw ka iliko ka mo masabat man ti lawlaw ka man nangagaw lang na yung morde so doon nakita mo man ang possible nga scenario attorney.
Well, it is really a risk no sa part ni More because what if most or majority of the people would think that nga hindi kami sa manug-agaw or something to that effect.
Yes.
It's really a risk because we are already putting up lines going towards Pavia, and you mentioned kamo sa Pavia kamo gid ang first if ever because you are contiguous to the city. So it's a risk. It's a calculated risk that More is taking because wala man kita kabalo sang thinking sang customer basi tanan sila emotional ang choice and it's not really anchored on logic, but really our motivation is to provide good service and nagapati lang kami if you are doing good work, if you're providing good service, if you're giving a rate that is competitive, you will attract the consumer. So, kumbaga amo lang ng amon nga ginakaptan nga yes, we are taking the risk, but in the end, we believe and we hope that the customers would see nga kung makabenepisyo sa ila, then we would attract them and they would transfer to us.
Finally, from a technical point of view, electricity business, anything that you spend for in making the services better will eventually be charged against the consuming public. Idaihan nga ining massive expansion sang More could become a potential problem eventually rates-wise, Attorney Alyana?
Yes, that is correct. The nature, the business of a distribution utility, normally, ang pinakadako nga bulk sang imong electricity bill, it is passed on to consumers. That's why we want to be very mindful of how we spend. Kay in the end, ang consumer ang makabatsyag kung naging mas matipid ka or naging mas magastos ka. But if you look at it also in our point of view, hindi ni si More mag-expand without having a plan nga mapa-maintain or at least mahatag ang same service nga ginpakita namon sa Iloilo City. So if we are going to enter into those new areas, and then of course we are very aware of the rates no kay ti amo gid na ang isa sa mga naging attractive nga aspect ni More aside from the good service ang rates. So we are very confident with our team, ang aton nga technical team who are in charge sa pag-maintain sa aton nga rates, that we can maintain that level of commitment nga hindi kami mag-untat asa hindi kami makapangita asang way para ma-temper ang effects ng rise of the global market on fuel. Everybody is affected, but it doesn't mean we are just going to take it sitting down. We are thinking always of ways managing circumstances nga kisa hindi taman ma-foresee, because we want to really do our commitment nga competitive ang amon nga rates. So even if we know that most of the expenses would be passed on to customers, hindi man kita makapahala because there is also a cap. So what we spend, we really have to be mindful because hindi na siya tanan mahatag mo lang sa customers. Otherwise, pilaayhan ang pagsaka sang presyo sang kuryente, and we are not entering those new areas only to make the people suffer, right? So that's what we promise. We're going to give you the service that you deserve, the service nga ginpakita na natin sa Iloilo City, and we are not going to just let the high coal prices, the high market prices, we are not just going to let it happen. We are going to find ways to really try and prevent the adverse effect to be felt by the customers.
More or less, of course, sila mo gani na nakita na ninyo ini, natunaan na ninyo ini. In all 15 towns, approximately pila ang gina-project ninyo nga mangin power need eventually?
Well, the power need in terms of the demand.
Yes.
I don't have the exact data with me yet, but we expect that the 5 new substations could provide for the need of the customers there. Kag hindi man di ang isa ka municipality parehas ang demand nga kinanglan. Of course, we know Pavia is really getting parang nagiging city na siya on its own right, no? Tama nakadako sang demand, damo nakita da sang malls and big businesses. So hindi na siya parehas sa tanan nga 15 municipalities. But like I mentioned, each phase kay per phase ni ang pag-ubra ta para maka-serve kita sa tanan nga expanded area. We have the corresponding substations nga nakaplan to serve and of course to provide sufficient energy to all those areas.
May isagi ko ka message nga nabaton, Attorney Alyana. Allow me to read the message. Sir Rhod, galantaw kami sa Eleco Subong. Oh, this is a good opportunity, Attorney Alyana. Galantaw sila sa Eleco. Ano ang mensahe nga gusto mo ipalabot? Let's start from here.
Okay, message. Well, first of all, thank you for the message, for letting us know that you're watching. Actually, I've met with some officials of Eleco 1, 2, and 3 actually. Kaya kami kahapon sa economic forum sponsored by the provincial government. So we were able to hear the plans of Eleco sa province, and they also got to hear Moore's plan sa expansion. So, there is no parang hidden agenda. We are very transparent sa amon nga plans. And I think it was mentioned, gamay lang gid nga they are also waiting kung ano man gid niya ang matabo sa expansion law, because naturally they might question if it's going to be constitutional, if it's going to take effect. So that is their right, and we understand. But I hope that the doors are not closed, because we at Moore have always said this, and I repeat this. We are open towards collaboration. We hope there will be a cooperative spirit between Moore and the Elecos, because in the end, we are going to serve the same consumers, the same people. And we hope that with the transition that will happen, I mean our expansion, not really assuming anything from your end, with the transition, tani ang mga konsumidor hindi sila mag-suffer nga sila ang mabutang sa tunga, mabutang sa alang-alang, they don't know what's happening. That's the last thing that we want. And I hope you feel our sincerity that it's really for the benefit of consumers.
I was attempting to retrieve a document having mentioned that word constitutional, no? Nga na-mention in that forum, no? Sang naginatubangay ka mo. Because prior nga naglaps into law ang ining RA 1198, there is another law of the same nature, if I am not mistaken, affecting yata Aboitiz and worst pa sa Iloilo, ng electric cooperative, ngayon veto ng presidente because para sa iya may existing law. Of course, the statement of the president, that veto statement of the president could not be translated as jurisprudence and a basis sa case or sa situation diri sa aton sa extensions ng more. Nagkakaulugan balay ni Attorney Alyana nga gina-anticipate man ninyong may kaso pa nga magwa antes kamo maka-move forward?
Well, we hope wala. The hope is tani wala, no? Kaya it's going to really get our attention, the energy and the attention that you will spend in a case, tani dito na lang sa operation. But that's our hope. But if you're asking if gina-anticipate na siya namon, then of course, yes. Because like what you've mentioned, it's what happened to the Aboitiz intended expansion. I think it was vetoed few days before our bill lapsed into law. So,
Yeah.
of course, nagkaroon sang parang doubt nga, okay, base amo man na ang maging kapalaran sang amon nga expansion bill. But we've read the House bill proposing the expansion of the Aboitiz group. And it's very different from the bill of more because ang nabutang dito, may ara sang transition period nga 2 years within which ang franchise area sang electric cooperative will be transferred to Aboitiz. So, ano gid siya yan, nagkakaroon sang taking. It's like they're taking a portion of their franchise area and giving it to another. So, in the end, exclusive man Japon ang franchise. Unlike in our case, there is an overlapping of franchise areas. Wala sang portion sa RA 11918 saying nga may mag-end nga franchise. So, Iloilo can still continue to exist, can still continue to serve those areas. Wala sang transition nga nabutang. The two DUs will compete. Unlike dito sa isa sa Aboitiz nga bill, wherein wala sila may mahimo. The electric cooperative can do nothing because the law is saying okay, after 2 years, diri na ni sa Aboitiz ang portion. And it's like they were left with nothing to defend themselves with. And kumbaga parang amo tong ginahambal nila nga daw robbed in daylight. So hindi amo sina ang case ni Moore because like what you've mentioned, wala sang franchise nga manubo or ma-cancel or ma-rescind. It's just basically giving competition and allowing customers to choose. So in that aspect, we are very different from the bill that was vetoed. And I also agree with your statement. Ang veto message ng president is not jurisprudence. But of course, we expect nga they're going to derive some parang comparisons nga ti amo ning hambal sang president. It can also be applied to this law. So yes, we anticipate nga base amo na ang maging move nila. And it's okay, it's fine, it's expected.
Hindi man ta gusto nga magkinasuhay naman liwat no? Again, I agree with what you said. Instead, spend naton ina sa kinasuhay, gastuhon ta lang to improve the operation, no? And maluoy man kamo. Hindi man ta gusto nga tuga ang nasambit niya kaso sang kunot sa agtang sang abogada gina-interview ta. Amo na lang ni nabilin nga manayanaya nga nawong pwede ta ma-interview. Dugangan nyo naman sa bago nga kaso. Anyway, that's kidding aside. Attorney Alyana, thank you so much sa sining kay ginanya ginatag mo sa aton.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you for having me. And I hope to see you. Siguro hindi na sa Zoom next time, face-to-face.
Mapa-picture mo lang ko, mamala na yung akong kausa. Attorney Alyana Babayen-on, thank you so much for your time. Ang legal officer sa more power, no? Gina-discuss naton ining panibag-o nga layi, ang RA 1198 nga naga-extend sa distribution utility coverage sang more power sa 15 ka mga kabanwahanan. That would include Pavia and the farthest ang Pasig City. So imagine niya kalayo sila. Now, nakasugod na diri sila ang subong sang ilang main power line sa may approach sa Pavia. So the question is, paano nila ini-execute? Kiti ako excited nga makita kung paano ini-execute. There's Roel Castro, the president, nga hyperactive and he weathered actually the storm sa bahin sang Iloilo City. So now fresh ini nga mag-atubang sang panibag-o nga challenge. Imagine extension or expansion wala sang agaw. So sige si Eleco, padayon si Moore, masulod si Moore. So ang ila gina-propose is joint poll agreement. First blani, malibog ulo nyo, kita ka na poste, mambal ka ba si makurinti, nagalaylay na ho, utod na, hindi ka na makurinti, kaya nas telepono. Nagalis ang telco sa poste sa power provider. Income pa na. In this case, mangin income pa ini sang Eleco. But, of course, kung ako naman sa Eleco, having seen and experienced kung ano ang ginhimo sang more sa PECO, hindi gikuya may trust issue giko. Sigurado gina. Parkilahon ta ka, dugay-dugay, nami-namion mo pagpanubo sa presyo sa kuryente mo. Dugay-dugay, nami-nami ang marketing mo. Tumpilak na kami. Dula na kami. Kay tuod man. This is not just about marketing. Pero the brand of service bala, nakita, kagin pakita sang more nga nubo yung ila presyo sang kuryente. Sa Elecos, taas. Kalayo sang diferensya. Di mo na subo nga, bisan kami nininiayan sa una, gabakal pa kami sang Malburo mo. Subong ano na lang tagana ito? Ha? Hindi man ikaw yan nagtabako dito sa Antique. Kita o kung paano ka nagsindi lumboy mo. No? Chesterville. Tama? Ha? Chesterfield. Daw mo na nasubong aton. Kika matter ng piso. Sini nga punto. Elekoya ka mahal. And every week, notice nyo, brown out di sa aton. Franchise areas ng Eleco. Kaya kung mag-burn out sila, paghangin, kag pagpangilat, burn out tayo mo. Tina-prove ka ni Moore nga na-improve na nila. Through time, na-improve na nila. Napanami nila serbisyo. Di kung ako sa Eleco, di tayo pagtagaan sa oportunidad, nga may track record kaya mo. May pagkatraidor ka. Of course, una ito yung away. Lain naman niya subong. Now, siling ganin ni Attorney Babayen-on, naintindihan niya nga may emotional response. But this is for the welfare and pagserbisyo sa mga konsumidores. Hindi raya, agree ko. No? Para niya sa mga konsumidores mo. So for Eleco to ensure nga hindi sila maagawan, kiti practically naghatag sang opportunity nga mangin may competition mo. Ang ining hagna may ara sang hindi niya looming immediate competition. So in the next 2 or 3 years, 5 years mo lang ang ilagi na istoryahan diri. So in the next 2 or 3 years, may mga switching na ni. Sa more na lang kuya kay Nubo. Wala sila burnout. So sa Eleco, kung ako Eleco, time to shape up. No? Tawag ka sa customer service ng Eleco, damo pakita sang mabasahan sa social media nga reklamo. UD! Burnout na naman. Tawag ka. Wala ka ka ginasabat. Si Moore, through time, amat-amat na nila na-improve ang ilang serbisyo and kaya na nila mag-accept gracefully sang mga complaints. Unlike sa pagsugod gid. Ti grabe gid man to be. Pinakamasalimuot atong takeover sa histories ng syudad sang Iloilo. Oh. Salimuot gid kayo. Now, sa sining nga punto, kung gusto ni Eleco nga hindi ka maagawan, kayuhon mo serbisyo mo. Dira ginaya, no? Kayuhon mo ang serbisyo mo. Bisan sa inot na kurente din, no? Oh, wati mo bayad. So, mareklamo ka. Oh. So, sa sining na punto, that's more than that actually. And the meat of the matter here is always the price of electricity. Pero halong, no? May caveat initanan. Halong. Ano ang gahawid dire? Under the law, anything that a distribution utility spends to improve their services, wala na iya gina-absorb isang distribution utility. Gina-pass on, meaning ginapasa ina sa inyo nga mga, sa aton nga mga konsumidores. Eventually, wala kuya gapati nga ma-retain ni nila ang presyo sang kuryente. Hindi gani mapapanaog ni Marcos ang presyo sang krudo. Oh. Si Rason mapanaogod yung presyo sang kuryente, absorbing all the impacts sang giyera, sang looming Chinese-Taiwan problem, looming conflict between South Korea and North Korea and in all other parts of the world. Doon kamudlay man. Business is business. Tisilinggan ni Attorney Alyana Babayen-on, and I like it when she said, we are really very mindful on how we spend. Tama na. Because ang sobra-sobra nga investment sa power industry, again, wala ina gina-absorb sang distribution utility. Ipasa man ina sa giyapon sa mga konsumidores. Parte ina sang ginabayaran naton and dako ina nga portion sang ginabayaran naton nga per kilowatt hour sa aton bill sa kuryente. Di ba latan? Oh. Amo na gani nga nag-solar kita. Imagine without that solar panel nga ginangot sang panay energy dira sa babaw. Ang bill diri sa opisina way naganubo 6,000 mo. No? Di ba tan? Kada bulan, di malason, kagaot sumil mo. Ti tatlo kami makina bilang kadalagan. Oh, ang Reyna mag-abot pa na dayon niya bika sa sofa tong pandar aircon. Di ba yan? Tulog-tulogan lang kami dayon niya kuno abi dulain matcha gali ka gusto lang magpa-aircon. Ti kamahal sa kuryente. Pero kay nag-angot ang solar nga na. That's the grid type. Why nang taginaw dani Iloilo subong no? Nauya na sa magutod kay ang bill namon ara na lang sa 600 kada bulan. No? Sa latest yan nga reading, bati ko dako pa nga aton nga sobra sa konsumo. So pwede ka dyan ka pa-aircon yan. Basta tandaan mo lang, pagpatak sa alas 7 sa gabi, patsa ang aircon. Kay, totoo na, hindi ba nagreklamo ko sa inyo natan? Ang konsumo nila sa ila quarters, 1.5, isa ka bulan. Dili sa opisina, 2 ka unit, 5 ka aircon gandar dunga na, 900. Siya lang to, isa katulog, 1.5. Wala pa na aircon. Wala aircon, pero grabe man ang heater ya. Pero tingin na pati ugo na. So, dira mo makita, kag dira mo ma-appreciate, nga kon naka-grid type ka nga solar, bisan bilog nga 24, hindi man 24 12 oras nga dariter mo, wala ta balayran. Masunog lang kalimutan mo na sa heater mo, hindi ta magbayad. So, muna nga daw gintakaan naman gani si Iloilo sa mungutod, kay pila na bill ta subong? 800? Ha? 800? Tikita mo na. 3-phase na. 800. Dungan pa na magalandar, lagko o makinade. So, well, of course, that's another side of the story. Pero kung wala kabisang mga amo silang facilities, chances are, malupay-pay kagid sa balayran mo sa kuryente sa Iloilo. No? Kung sa more kita, ang aton sa 6,000 siguro, ara sa 3,500, no? No? Just the same. Taas man sa gyapon. Anyway, this will be a long journey. No? Iset naton si Congressman Mike Goreseta next week kung paano nila ini gina-appreciate ang pagsulod sa more power diri sa iyang area. No, para nga may buluan ta kung ano man ang ginalantaw nila nga intervention para mangin matawhay ini. My name is Rhod Tecson and this is IMT Conversations on IMT News.
IMT Conversations with Rhod Tecson. An incisive and sharp discussion of today's current issues. Ang pagpadayon sa duwa ka dekada nga serbisyo publiko. IMT Conversations with Rhod Tecson.